Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. You've got your host, Howard Hondo Greenberg, here to take care of you this week. My main man there, Steven Big Beat Orr, is on the road in New York at some fintech conventions on the floor of the NASDAQ. You name it, he'll be there this week while up in New York. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So, first of all, let's start with the markets that have been open throughout the weekend, starting first with crypto. Taking a look at Bitcoin here, back below 90,000 here, but held up over 90 really nicely here. Day chart still a little concerning. Started to make a move yesterday that I thought was going to take us back up towards that 93 level. Sort of need to see another move up towards that. I'm in a neutral zone right now on Bitcoin on the short term here. Short term. I think we could see a pullback towards that 87,000 range again. So we'll see what happens this morning. We'll see what inflows look like on the Bitcoin ETFs and take a look from there. Crypto market in general had a good weekend. Some of the winners still moving up here. You know, XRP, we've talked about it. Ripple. And for those that haven't been tuning in, you know, very important news sort of came out of the Trump transition team that there was talk on the campaign trail that Trump was going to get rid of capital gains taxes on crypto, right? It's now coming out that he is looking to target cryptos that are US based. I don't know where Bitcoin will fall into that. We'd have to see what he comes up and says there, because he does say Bitcoin's going to be mined here in the US, and we're going to be the major producer of Bitcoin in the future. So does that mean it sort of gets grandfathered into that realm? We'll see. But the ones that have the most, to gain from that, so to speak, Ripple, of course, which is US based. They have a few things that they could win on here. You have, number one, the fact that they, again, US based. If there's no taxes on Ripple, that's going to be good. We're seeing an adoption at TradeFi, at traditional finance and crypto. Ripple is at the forefront of that and has been for years. They've done, cross border transfer testing with most of the major banks, especially over in Europe and Asia. So now we'll probably see that move into the US. Also, Cardano, another one that's gotten a lot of love. Part of that, again, US based. It is incorporated in Wyoming. And number two, Charles Hawkinson is very close with Elon. And was there for a meeting with Elon and the Trump team in California last week. And there's talks that they want to use. One of the things Cardano has been working the most on, and why I've always been a fan, is they have been focused in Africa a lot and trying to use blockchain for a lot of the things that it really does well, as opposed to just speculative, meme coins. We're talking about a project that's looking to use blockchain technology to secure elections. I actually was on a group at ATARC here in the US that did a white paper for the US government on how they could use blockchain to secure and provide better transparency in elections. So there's a lot of talk that maybe Hawkinson will work on that. He has also been working in Africa to use blockchain to prove provenance, both sovereign identity. There's a lot of migrants there. So again, for them to prove identity can be tough. So using blockchain to prove identity. And then also for like credentials, if you've got a degree somewhere, that it would actually be part of the blockchain, you'd be able to look at it that way. So a couple of good things there, but more importantly, the takeaway is a lot of these US based ones are moving up here, although Matic is not US based and it's moving up nicely. So we're seeing that across the board. A little bit of love here on crypto. Does seem to be, retracing in general, but not tremendously. Staying in the world of crypto, those that have been watching the show know I am a big fan of Mara, M-A-R-A, the Bitcoin mining company, getting hit pretty hard here today because they are going to offer $700 million in convertible senior notes due 2030. But as I was explaining to Scott Bauer, I am a fan of this move because what it is they are following Michael Saylor's playbook. They are raising this money not just to dilute the stock or because they need capital, but they're going to buy Bitcoin with that capital. They are going to start to not only not sell the Bitcoin that they mine, but they are actually going to be using Bitcoin investment as a strategy, the same way that MicroStrategy does. So I'm watching it closely here today. It dropped about 6.5, 7%. Got down as low. I don't want to give you a false reading here, so let's just pull up the chart. Got down as low as like 1945 here, so it hit the zone that I was looking at. It's found some pretty good support here, but I'd want to see it regain some strength. So I'm looking at it if it breaks 20 here. So again, I'm looking at it if it breaks 20 for a move to the upside, a continued move to the upside there. On Mara, I will get back to you guys and let you know if Scott comes back to me with a particular trade that he likes there. But, we've been talking Mara in here, so I do want to keep that in line. The other one, MSTR, we've talked a lot about in here today. It's sort of, I don't want to say a no man's zone, but it's in a spot where it could go either way here. So I got to see more of a definitive move one way or the other. I would need it to, I was looking on the hourly chart more here on MSTR. And as you can see, we're sort of halfway in between this trading range. It's hit between a low where it's found support at 318.59 or so, and then it goes all the way up to that 384 level. So risk reward right here at that 340, about halfway in. A little tough. I'd want to see what it does here. I would give this one a little bit more time to play out before I made a move one way or the other there. Getting into the general stock market indices, what's going on here? We do see that QQQ outperforming SPY so far here this morning, up about 0.37. Movement has been a little bit positive since about 8 o'clock, actually about 8:15, I guess it turned. We'd seen a drop here right from 8 to about 8:15, but now regained those levels. Not quite sure what happened there. There wasn't really any news that I saw. Seeing some news here from Ron Williams. UAVS up 50% pre-market with no news. UAVS. I do have some other pumpers we'll talk about here as we get closer to it coming. Let's take a look here, see what we see. Oh yeah, that's looking nice too. Trying to break to a higher high here. If that can get above this 450 here, watch out, 460, there it goes. Definitely one to keep a mind on here. So pre-market pumper there. Thanks for pointing that out, Ron. UAVS looks good here. Other pumpers, if we want to start there, since we already see one starting here that we got to keep an eye on. In fact, I'm going to add that to my watch list here today. Some other pumpers that I was looking at already this morning. We have a few that pumped after hours. On Friday, and this was holding up pretty good. This is for FOUR Shift 4 payments. You can see it made the real nice move up here, big move up on Friday. It's retraced a little bit, but it's staying in a pretty nice zone right now. And again, this is one I think if it breaks that 103.89 level, you could really see it run. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on. Another one was HCWB, although this one does look like it's blowing off. I looked at it just before 8 a.m. It was still in an upward movement. Trying to find it. If it gets back above VWAP, this is another one, HCWB, that was a Friday pumper. As we know, a lot of those like to repeat here on the open. APLM was another one. And not liking the look of that. You can see it already made its second move here this morning. So that's what I'm talking about. A lot of them we'll see it make its move up on Friday, trade down for a while, pre-market. And then this one already, like I said, at 8 o'clock, it made its second move up, broke through VWAP, but a lower high. It will make a third move usually on this. Usually after a test, this probably 16 cents. You could look for it for a move, but then it usually will stop towards that VWAP. So this is usually law of diminishing returns on these pumps. You usually see a third. That would be the third you'd be looking at here. The other two before it, we're still looking for its second. So, and you can see here, you see that with the NIVF, right? You made the first move up here after hours. It tried this morning and made its second move up. Didn't get quite as high, so this isn't a continuation breakout. Those are the ones we really like to see when they make a move back up here and then they stay in this range. And you're going to see I have a couple of those here to look at. But now this one's trying to make its third move up here. So again, if you see it make a move above about $1.05 here, you could follow into that trade. SINT, you can see this has, and keep in mind this is a 3-minute chart, so you might be saying, "Whoa, that's really fallen off." That's only from 7 o'clock this morning till 9:10, so that's a 2-hour period that you're seeing here. It definitely could spike again, and what you'd look for is the volume confirmation. Those that have TradingView, I highly recommend B4. B4 is a great little community indicator here that I use. It gives me trend direction, divergence, so a take on MACD, and then a squeeze alert for those that like TD squeeze. So it gives me 3 of them sort of together, and it gives you a nice visual on it. So I do like that. So this is one you can see that's fallen away. It's not working. It will try to make a third, and that might even have been its third one here. So this would be one we'd be looking to actually short if you can. THAR looks like it's going to fall back into that $2 and not much room down, only about 20 cents, so 10% movement to the downside here. But if I had a look here, that's looking like it did, number 1 up here. Number 2 came here, couldn't even get to back to VWAP, so that's where you start to panic, to bail on those moves. And out, MNDR here is another one I was looking at this morning. That's not doing much either. So, although this straight down pattern and then consolidation, we do sometimes see that 930 pump. So MNDR, keep an eye on it here. If it gets volume, because if it does pump, you'll see a nice move back up towards this 46 cents. So there's definitely room here. You can see it's starting to turn. It gave some buys, but it was false buy signals here on the B4. That's definitely one I would keep on my radar here. MNDR would be one that I would keep on the radar here this morning. Okay, let's get back into what trades sort of around the clock here. We'll say gold. Gold has nicely broken back above that 2600 level. Those that were here last week, I had mentioned, it faced an area where it just didn't seem to be able to break through that 26 for a while. Once it got below it, it seemed to want to stay below it. But now trying to break back above it could give us a bullish signal on gold in general here. So we'll see what happens. It matters. 2620 is the level I'm looking at there. 2620. Break above that puts you back with 2700. I'd be looking at 2672 as my first take profit there, and then 2700. So gold definitely one that you can keep an eye on today on any upward movement. Silver's really been locked below that 31 here, and and then as Steve said, it sort of has a real ceiling of 35. So not much that I'd play here. Although you say that, and it actually isn't a bad play for a play from 30 to 35 to that range, 30 to 33. It could have a nice 10% upside there, and what I would say is the downside protection is pretty solid here at that 29 level. In general. So I do think you could play that to the upside here now. Oil's back up around 68. So to me, on the opposite side, that's a little bit overextended here this morning. Oil, as we know, demand in China considerably down. If our new administration will be pumping away here in the U.S. Steve's talked about it's more time to buy when you see it hit that 63 level. I can't argue there. Okay, so that gets us sort of, DXY. We have Stephen Flanagan coming in at 10 o'clock, like always on Mondays here. DXY 106.57, so it seems to be leveling off, after making a 52-week high when it broke 107. As a little bit of a teaser, what I did ask Steven is it does look like here it's going back to about last Wednesday. I noticed been in a pretty tight range here. Asking him what he thinks it will take to break out of it, and you can see even more so that you get into really a triangle pattern here that's been forming. And this triangle pattern is, consolidating. So usually you see sort of an explosive move. So we'll find out from him at 10 o'clock if he thinks there's something here to cause that explosive breakout to one side or the other. I do want to look at Steve did mention that he got in a few items here over the weekend. He went long on Boeing and Apple. So Steve went long this weekend on Boeing and Apple, bought them outside of normal hours, but as you know, they trade 24/7 on a lot of the exchanges, including just Robinhood, but I know he's on IKBR. So he got into Apple here. It's been moving up, looks like this 225. I'd say 226 is its key spot today. If it can break above 226, you've got a little bit of play for it here when looking at the hourly chart. Might try to refill, and if I had to guess, Steve's going to look for it to refill that gap to 227.54. I was trying to see if any analysts had any news here on anything. Not really on Apple that I see here. Not really any new reports. The last stuff was um, beginning of the month. So yeah, not really much there that I see. Steve likes it. He got into it. I'll find out some more from him on that trade. The other one we've been talking about was Boeing. He got in there. It is up about a quarter of a point here in pre-hour trading. Boeing's one that I've talked about. I wanted to get in. This 140 level doesn't look too bad. I like it back better at that 137 spot. So we'll see what happens. I personally, the way I'm gonna play this, just so everybody knows here, is I'm gonna hold on for one of two things to happen. I want to see it get above this 141.60 that it froze up on Thursday. If it can get above that, I think it's got some pretty good. It's on its way back up at that point. So I want to see a little bit more conviction than Steve did there. Or I'm going to try to play it back off of a double. Would actually be a triple tap down here around that 137. So I'm going to go for a little bit of a tighter look here at what we've got and go from that spot. Let's see what else we got here today. We got earnings coming up this week. So Nvidia is one of the big ones that we got coming on deck on Wednesday. Down about 5% between Friday and today. You can see it had been trading up as high as 149, now down at 139. So a pretty decent drop here. Man, this is a tough one. I like it to play into earnings. I don't like to play it through earnings. I think that it's just I think everything they're going to say is going to be great, and I think they exceed expectations. But I think man, it just does that matter? I'd ask those of you watching, do you think Nvidia has a chance to on a beat here to just blow things away? You look at the analysts there. Last week, even price targets Wedbush 160, Oppenheimer 175, Raymond James 170, Susquehanna 180, HSBC 200. You've got some serious callouts for upside on Nvidia here. Trying to see what the low end of it is. I don't even see a low end here on anybody. What do we got? 150, and that was that's back over a month ago from Morgan Stanley. No, they already came out. Never mind, they adjusted since then. So yeah, I mean, lowest on the street looks like Mizuho at 165. No, that Wedbush 160. So the latest one's the lowest, but I mean, you gotta like that move to the upside. But man, Nvidia could go bad the other way. That's a tough one. We'll just have to keep an eye on that. Other ones, you got some tech on the same day. You got tech coming out tomorrow. You got Snowflake. Another huge tech company here. Didn't see much here I like one way or the other. Again, this is more similar to what we looked at earlier. It's in the middle of a zone here. So not a big fan to play this one way or the other. I will say Nvidia, I would be leaning towards the upside um, there. Do have to mention Tesla getting some more love here today. Continues to rise up. Combination, of course, if any of you watch UFC, you saw our boy Elon. As I always say, don't fade the Musk, right? Elon was with Mr. Trump and the whole entourage at the UFC in New York City over the weekend. That was interesting to see. It was DJT was there, his kids were there, well, his sons were there. You had RFK there, you had Tulsi Gabbard there, you had Michael Johnson was there. It was some interesting. And the one that the more takeaway that I heard coming out on the talking heads over the weekend was that the newly appointed Speaker of the House was not there soon. So, but it was interesting. There was all the stars there, good fights. Unlike that Tyson's and Netflix, got to say Netflix. I haven't looked yet to see it was dropping and I have seen more bad comments on social media about the quality of the feed of that Tyson fight on Saturday. Does not getting hurt too bad here, down about 0.73. Um, I'm one of those. That's a glass half full to me, right? If you were had so many viewers that it sort of crashed the system, while it's not a good look, you can fix that. What you couldn't fix if people didn't show up for the fight. So to me, it shows that Netflix can bring the viewers in. Now the question is, can they service those viewers? That's what we'll have to keep an eye on. Tick is slightly positive here, 105. VIX has shot up to 1647 here. So I have to spend a little time. And we told you when it was down in those 13s to buy that protection then. You don't want to be buying the VIX now, looking for that protection if you use that as a source. QQQ continuing to climb here, trying to get up about a half a point as we get into the hours. Bitcoin regained 90,000 nicely here. So we'll see. It's found some decent support here at this 89,500 down to 89 level. It's getting a pretty good. What I'm happy to see is it's getting support. It's showing support where we had seen that sell-off liquidity that I had been worried about last week. You can see here we've now seems to have flipped the bottom edge of that into support. So that's what we like to see. Does look good there. What else did I have on the board here to keep a look at? So you do see Mara making a move back up here, 1990. So Mara does look like it's going to try to climb up here. As I said, a break of 20 here, and I really like that. Notice Kava got hit pretty hard here in pre-market hours. And you can see since their earnings where they just blew right up, that one's pulled right back to the same zone it was in. And it shows you, these earnings things, you got to be careful. Don't be late to an earnings play. Be in the earnings plays. Be one of those people that won on that wick up, not one of the people that chased that wick up that now, have lost it. Because what we've seen is the immediate reaction out of retail has usually been played the other way out of institutional following it, and it's moved, you know, you've seen a lot of this exact reversal, mean reversal. You got to be looking at them. They just show up across the board on so many different things. We'll say another one that it got beat up pretty badly over the weekend that I am definitely keeping an eye on here this morning is OKLO. OKLO, as you know, one that we've been watching here on this show and that came to our attention from Matthew Tuttle and Jeremy Vreeland. You can see it used that perfect support zone, and I missed it at 1765 here earlier, on Friday, and pulled back almost to fill that gap, and that's what I'm hoping for. I want to fill at this 1830, 1840 level on a downward play. On an upward play, what I've said is similar to Mara. I'm looking for it to break this resistance at $20. If it does, I'll probably follow in there. So keep in mind, my thesis, biggest thesis, that we still have some downside, that we've seen it is in there. But what I do want to point out is during these sort of pullbacks, you sometimes see some of your biggest rips. So, reversal rips here are definitely in play, but it's a bearish market in general for me. I do think that we're not out of the woods yet. We will talk a little bit more with Stephen Flanagan about the fact, it seems to me, and I'll ask again the viewers here, inflation seems to be what is on all of Main Street media's mind. It seems that, we had that 2-month period where everything was about labor, right? The Fed's cutting because labor is resilient. They've already taken care of inflation. Looks like that might have been a little bit premature. And what we're now seeing again is more inflation talk, inflation talk, inflation talk. And that's going to weigh on the markets. I also definitely think that, while the U.S. markets are strong right now, we're not seeing that overseas, especially out of Europe or China. So I'll be interested. We do have earnings. In fact, tomorrow we've got a couple of the bigger Chinese names. I have Weibo and XPeng, the XPeng rather, the EV car company. And then again on Thursday, you've got PDD, which is Temu, and Baidu. I'll be interested to see there if Temu, what's going on. I don't know if you guys saw Amazon has added a new service. Let me pull up Amazon here. Amazon is adding, basically has said that Temu and Shine were hurting their business, and that they have a competitive service. I apologize, forget the name of it. But it's a 2-week turnaround, and you get the cheaper products shipped directly from China, the same way that Temu works. So I thought that was interesting. I know that I was going to take a look at it, see what it looked like. I personally don't use Temu or Shein. I have never had an experience, bad or positive, with them, but I think I fell into that hype cycle where people said that they were stealing information, and I just said, I don't want to deal with it, but I would be interested to buy some. I love a gadget better than anybody else out there, and they are the company for gadgets. SMCI, got to talk about it, obviously. One that has finally looked like it's definitely, picked up here. Another one, that we talked about for weeks. And Steve and I both were of the philosophy that it was too risky to pick up on end of last week, as they were talks of getting delisted. I did talk about the breakup cost, though, or breakup value of the company was in a spot that it's still an attractive spot to maybe get in. But they have said that they're gonna file their response, and that hopefully, and it looks like they won't get delisted. So could be similar to what we've been waiting for with Bank of America, with enough good news here. That's when I got to see break this 2133 area to see a truer reversal. We saw that it made that move in the beginning of November that looked like a reversal, but when it couldn't get back above the former high, it then just kept on going further down. So I want to see a break above this high here so that we feel we can make that move up. With that being said, on the other side of that, man, it just SAVE, right? They declared bankruptcy, Chapter 11. They are trying to, I thought I had them on that page, sorry. They are going to try to reorg, try to find a buyer, try to do something. But as you can see, that's down after being down 18%. There went back down to its lows here of $1.03, and now sitting right about $1.09. Tough one to play. Steve had talked about it. This is one, if it does get a little bit of love, you start to see it go, could get itself in a nice spot. With retail pushing it. We are 1 minute away from open here, so let's keep our eyes open. I want to watch and see what some of these early morning pumpers do here as we open up. So I'm going to stay on this little page right here. so that I can keep an eye, and I'm watching 4 to see if it does something. I want this also on the 3-minute chart. I'm going to be watching here. We want 4. You know what? I've got another one that does 4 of these. Let's pull that up here while we can. We are open. Let's get on it then. We are open. Let's see what we get here. Start with the tick. Tick's about 21, negative 92. What's going on? QQQ's lost about half of its early morning pre-market gains, so moving down. Bitcoin moving down here, 90,400, 93. Gold sitting pretty stable, not a lot of movement there. SPY has dropped down almost to even here. So the early morning seeing a little bit of a sell-off here. SPY continuing to drop now at even for the day. QQQ 0.21. Let me just take a quick look at those pumpers here. Did any of those move tremendously? Looks like 4 is trying to move up here again. If 4 breaks this 103, there it goes. 104. 4 is going to try to make a run here. If it breaks 104, you could watch that one. It's kind of expensive for a pumper, to be honest with you. HCWB, what's it doing? Not much so far. Still staying above VWAP though here, so this one's still in play. The one that I talked about, MNDR, was the one that I thought might make a move here. Not so far. Let's see what we get. THAR. Not making a move yet. Seeing our first stop of the day. SWVL. Is that to the upside or downside? Let's see it. SWVL. It doesn't have enough volume here. It is to the upside, but that is got very limited volume. 8,000. You can't play around there. Looks like signing day, but that's an Amex. I don't want to play with that. Never mind. Not anything else yet. Let's see what we've got. Financials all open up negative here. Wow. ACGL down about 5.5%. That's Arch Capital. City is up a little bit. CME and SIBO are up a little bit. But in general, Robinhood, another one up nicely here this morning, up another 4.5%. So Robinhood, a nice little jump here to start his day. So Robinhood's one here to watch for a little bit of a pumper. Losing a little bit of momentum, but Robinhood trying to make a move up here this morning. Still trying to run. Tick down about 158. Negative on the SPY here. QQQ trying to hold up positive so far. The rut is slightly positive. There you go, 33.88. So it's running. Robinhood running here this morning. Now up 4.61%, 4.46%. Bitcoin getting a nice little bid here too, up 90,640. Will say I am still in my BTCL, but I am thinking about pulling the plug there if we don't approach 93 again, just because I think my money might have a little bit more use somewhere else. But BTCL, I'm still here. We're up nicely on it. I'm in at like that 40, 45, 46 level, so not too worried there. Okay, let's keep going here. Getting a little feedback that my volume is low here. Let's see if that's picked up now. I'm worried that it's doing its auto thing here, so let me lock in. Give me 1 second here to lock in my volume. Make sure it's hanging out correctly here. Volume lock. Where is my lock on this? Locked volume. There we go. So that hopefully is giving everybody that you can hear me here. And I do apologize for that. So hopefully everybody can hear me now. It does look good from my side. Let me see if Ron got back to me here. Okay, so it sounds like it's working now. I apologize for that getting low there. Thank you, Ron, for letting me know. Okay, let me get back to my screen here. Ooh, Oklo making its move here. Oklo's making its move. Got above that VWAP here. So Oklo one in play a little bit here. We'll say nice move up by Ripple here this morning. If it can break this 115 here, we could see a little run here. As I mentioned, I ended up not selling my Cardano and Ripple. I think this run on alts has a little bit more room on it to run to the upside. So definitely one that I'm holding on here, holding on. Bitcoin 90. I'm trying to get above 91 here, so that should be good for my BTCL. What is Mara doing? Mara's one that I don't want to run away from me here. So I'm going to keep an eye. 1990s. Like I said, I like Mara if it breaks across 20 here. 1991. It's trying to make that move. So again, I like Mara above 20 here, guys, for both a short-term scalp and also a longer-term play. Either way, on the short-term scalp, I'm looking on a break of 20 for it to first challenge 2090 and then to challenge 2150. So you got some pretty good upside there. To keep an eye on. Okay, let's see what else is moving here this morning. Okay, we've got our market movers now up. HCBW, we know that. APLM, I wasn't watching that one anywhere, I don't think. Was that on my today's watch list? No, what's going on here? UAVS now up 65%. Ron brought this to us when it was up about 50%. Continuing to move up here. That's a nice looking chart for a breakaway too. It is giving you two bearish indicators here though on the B4. Trend direction and divergence, so keep an eye on it, but definitely moving in the right direction. None of the other early movers are really moving. MNDR a little bit, the one that I brought up, but not really. Up about 15% here this morning. SINT not able to get a bid here. NIVF gone all the way back. Like we said, that one is fade play at this point. APLM. And you can see it did its third attempt here. So that played out like we talked about, right? Made its first run up. Second was less. I said look for it to try to get to VWAP. It probably won't break it, right? Got right to VWAP here. Now broke down. So that's the standard what we tend to see here with those. That's why we keep an eye. History tends to repeat itself. Four's holding up okay so far. Again, this is one if it could get back above that 103.90. The problem, like I said, it's playing at a high cost here. So HCWB, the other one we were looking at, trying to make its move back up here. So this one I like because it just broke above that. I missed this one. This was the one. This is one that looks like it wants to try to make a move back up to that $1.33 here from $1.05. And it was really that 90 cents we were talking about earlier once it broke that VWAP. I missed that one. I'm sorry, everybody. 109. Look at that. It's going to run away here. Okay, let's see. Hopefully that fixes that issue. Put that over there so it doesn't. Trying to run 109. See here. Ticks positive 112, so we are back to positive. Buy's gone positive here. QQQ now gaining. So after that initial sell-off, we seem to be moving up nicely here. Gold back above 2,600 also. WTI towards 69 here, 68.5. So again, getting a little bit of love. Apple up about almost 7/10 of a point. Steve happy there. Remember, Apple and Boeing, Steve got into over the weekend here. Boeing is down about a half a point here this morning. I did mention for the Boeing, I'm more looking at that. Not the 3-minute chart here. Hold it. I was looking at that 137 area, but comes back to, so pulls back a little bit more here. I might look for a longer term long there. Coinbase down about 3% here this morning, so definitely seeing a little bit of the love fade there. Delta down about 2% here. Is that across all the airlines? Let's take a look. I do have them as a... The airlines get hit pretty hard here. Jeez. Yeah. Airlines in general getting hit hard here today. I don't know why I don't see any real news there on that. Okay, what else do we have going on? Let's take a look at these sectors and see what's happening here. Banks are mostly green here. Not up tremendously. See JP Morgan up a quarter of a point. Bank of America up about 0.15. Goldman Sachs down a little bit. Goldman Sachs was down last week too. So Goldman Sachs, after gapping up on its earnings here to that 570 level, it's sort of pulled back down. But in general, banks looking strong today. Chip sector, mixed bag here. AMD up 3.56% here today. So AMD looks good. Intel up 1.99% here. We are down almost 2.5%. So NVIDIA could get interesting here for a play into the rest of earnings if it can drop down a little bit more. Retest a 137.15 or so would put it in a good spot. Okay, let's see here. E-commerce, mixed bag there. Nothing really standing out to me except Carvana, man, up another 2% here. That's, its all-time high was 260. This thing has just been on a roll. It makes Bitcoin look bad. It continues to go. Chewy getting a little love here today. Eats Etsy getting a little love. So e-commerce looking pretty good today. Healthcare actually showing up a little bit decent here today. Elevance up 0.53. UNH though is still down. Healthcare holding up a little bit. Hotels a mixed bag here. Mag 7 in general. Tesla, wow, 7% now. 345 on Tesla. Just running away here. Google finally making a little bit of a resurgence here. They've just been battered and bruised for, being down and out with the regulators here. What's going on? Let me take a look here at the halts. Vino, Vino on a halt. Vino, a wine company. The Gocho Group. What do they do? Real estate development. Ooh, they're getting stopped here. This is an interesting one. So this one pumped this morning all the way to 312, retraced all the way, and now trying to make a pump here. This breaks 210 you could look for. So here, this is definitely a pumper to keep an eye on here. Going to be coming off halt. Definitely got room to the VWAP around 242. And you'd be looking at 310. So that one definitely has room to the upside here. So that's an interesting one to watch here. Vino. When is it going to come off though? 941. Should be coming off here in about a minute. So we'll keep our eyes on this as it tries to come off a halt. Okay, let's see what else is going on across the markets here. Not a ton here. Okay. Bitcoin holding above 90, 9,400. Like to see that. SPY's back at just flat. QQQ looks like it's trending down to flat here. We'll see what happens. Here goes Vino. It's moving up 232 off of the halt here, so it is trying to make a run. Oof, got hit hard at that VWAP. Let's see, though. You got to like the way that started out. Now back down 208. It's trying, though. Goes again, 240. Look at that, right up to VWAP. There you go. You got a runner. You have got a runner. Okay, here. Sorry. Let's see. 230. Tick negative 300 now, and we see SPY has gone negative again. Does look like QQQ trending towards that direction also. Bitcoin, like I said, holding up nicely above 90. Can't argue with it there. CWTI back down around 80, 68.34 here. Vino still trying here. Getting hit right at VWAP, though. Let's see if it can make a run through there. You still got room for this sucker to run. And again, it got stopped at that 196 area the first time. Trying to make a run through. Apple making a nice little move up here. Steve's investment there looking pretty good. Another player that just keeps on seeming to move back up. AFRM, Affirm Pay Now, or Buy Now, Pay Later. Trying to get a run here. Up almost 5% on the day. Berkshire Hathaway get up about a 0.28 there. Take a look here. So, whoa, Berkshire getting a little bit of a bid here up to the highs of the day. So Berkshire getting a little bit of love here to the highs of the day. Oh, I started to mention on Tesla that part of the news there is that the Trump team is going to create some self-driving rules, make it a little easier for the self-driving part of the company to, continue to grow. It's been under a lot, of regulatory scrutiny. We know anytime that there is an accident, especially if there's a death, that it gets an outsized, reaction from regulators and the mainstream media. So let's see, SPY struggling. Staying in a pretty much in a zone, but downward angle there. Question is, does SPY fill this gap down to that 576 area? You can see it's right back, and it did get some support here so far this morning, right about that zone I pointed out. That was a liquidity zone for it, but it starts to eat up this liquidity zone here. Look for a drop down. Could try to fill the gap to the downside. Does look that way in general to me. I would say market is looking a little weak here so far. 20 minutes in, we can definitely see a turnaround, but QQQ, same thing. My question is, will that 496.35 hold up? So that's my big spot that's got to hold up here for QQQ. 496.39 that held up here this morning in the pre-market hours. Do we see a double bottom in that area, or are we going to see it move back up? That's the question. Let's try. Tick still negative about 110. Dow Jones down about 0.2%. SPY is pretty much even here at that 585.50 area. You can see it retraced that half measured move we talked about, it making up to that 598.66 that we called out last week, but has pulled back since then, right back to that same level. So both of them right now at key support levels. Any little drop here, I think we'd see a move back down. First spot of support on the SPY you'd look at is that 476.41, which would be the 50-day MA. And also right about that spot, you can see where it gapped up from, right? Here on November 5th. Gold trying to make a little bit of a move up here. WTI, oil moving down in the downward direction. Let's see what's going on with crypto here. XRP right about that $1.14 level still. ADA gained a little bit more, up to 74 cents. Ethereum having trouble staying above 31 here, but still a nice little zone here in that 30,000 to 3,100 range. Solana continue to go up 242 here. Wow, CBAT had been up in the early morning hours here pre-market, now down almost 5% here today. Kava, again, we talked about it. That one's down another 5% here today. Mara now down at 19.17. That's why we hold tight to our levels here, right? That's why we hold tight to our levels. So we needed to break and get above that 2015. Never did. And you can see it's continuing to break to the downside. Okay, LO has given back most of its gains too. So market definitely seems like it wants to give up. Getting a note here from Scott Bauer. He's trying to buy the Oklo December 1923 calls for $1. Let me see what we got here. So give me 1 second to take a quick look at this. And again, he's talking about buying the December 1923 call, covered call spread here. So looking at the December option, December 20th. Looking to buy the 19, sell the 23. It's about $1.03 for a profit. So you got a max loss of $103 for a max profit at 297. That is a nice one. I'm going to try to get in that myself. So I am entering that in myself. Okay, I've got that loaded up myself. Again, that is Oklo here, looking at an end of December 19 $23 call spread. So you're buying the 19, you're selling the 23, looking to do that for $1. So we like that play. It's got about a 2.5 to 1 risk reward ratio. And thank you again to Prosper Trading and Scott Bauer for that. Okay. I am going to take a quick 5 minute break here before Steve comes on so that I can just grab a quick drink and we'll be right back.
Yes, sir. It was great. Yeah, beautiful weekend. Got a lot of work done around the house. Ah, you got a grandkid? Or is that your? Duh. Ay, ay, ay. I have a 4-year-old grandson. There you go. Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. CPI releases throughout the world this week. Primarily focusing on the UK and ECB. You know what you have this week? Yeah, I do believe we're in a bit of a consolidation. The Trump trade is moving behind us. Central banks don't meet until mid-December, but a lot of central bankers speak this week. So I think this week is all about, watch out for your news blurb. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's basically where I'm going to go today. I'm of the belief these central bankers, they're clueless. But I really think that their forward guidance is just wrecked. So right, right.
Welcome back, Quasar Markets Live, and welcome back to my main currency man here, Stephen Flanagan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Howard. Hope it was a good weekend for everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, if you're here, it means we got to talk a little bit about how money moves first, and we got to take a look at the DXY. Otherwise, Steve would fire me.
Yeah.
So, what are we thinking here? 106.50. I was looking at the hourly, and it looks like we might be a little bit. Look at this in consolidation. By the way, I put this up after I talked to you earlier. That's a hell of a consolidation we sort of got here.
Yeah, and I think that's the, Trump trade behind us quickly. Things move so rapidly. And I think you're in a bit of a consolidation now. I mean, if you open this chart up into a weekly, you suddenly realize, wow, we're pretty lofty levels here.
Oh yeah.
Um, but, at 106 and a half, I think, I kind of want to see this 106.30 level hold, but I would not be surprised in a consolidation to see a break on the downside because the marketplace is going to look to find support. 105.70.80, I believe, should hold it. And I think you're still targeting in a 107.35, which is back to the October 23 high.
Yep.
And does that satisfy this dollar move? It's quite possible the mix of things that are in the world, you've got a bad concoction right now, which could spell, an even higher dollar a Dixie here to that 107.35 and beyond. And once you start charting those levels, you start throwing darts on the wall.
Yeah, we don't like that part. Uh,
No,
so I've got to bring up, it seemed, I thought that inflation was gone. Didn't the Fed tell us that a couple of months ago? And, now it seems to be all we hear is inflation's back. What's going on?
if we're going to trade release by release and say a 1/10 above expectation is suddenly cause, you can see the way the market, interest rate markets, they're kind of lost right now. I think if you step back and take a look, interest rates must come down. Inflation is coming down. The difficult part is now ahead of us. But these global central bankers, they're clueless over the last 2 to 3 years with forward guidance. I mean,
Yeah.
just you've got ECB Lagarde speaking Monday, today, later, and Wednesday, and you've got Bank of England's Bailey speaking before Parliament on Tuesday. What are they going to say? Data dependent.
Right.
I mean, think about that, Howard. Data dependent is I'm going to look at the last 2 months worth of news to drive my market today. Where is the forward guidance? You can't drive an automobile looking in the rearview mirror.
It's
You've got
exactly what I wanted. I was just going to steal that from you because I didn't know you were going to use it. I was going to say it'd be like it's like driving a NASCAR race, but only looking in a rear view mirror to make your decisions.
yeah,
Eventually you're going to drive into the guardrail.
that you've got to have some sort of forward looking outside the front of the windshield. And in that case, you are seeing economic growth. I don't care. Powell has said he's not in a hurry. What is he going to wait for? Is he going to wait for numbers to begin to crater? He's already said that the interest rates are at a restrictive level. Inflation is lower and it is just above their levels of that they wanted to guide, and that goes for all around the industrialized world. So there is no reason to hold interest rates at these levels and make people, the populace, suffer. What's going to result on that is something that they're not looking. You're going to begin to see, and you've already been seeing it, a populist movement. One could
Oh
look at the
yeah.
recent Eurozone elections and the shift to a more populist state. One could look at the US elections and begin to determine the same.
Yeah, especially if you look at the DAs, they all lost. All of those
Yeah.
progressive DAs, and that's where Soros spent all that money to upend everything. Looks like it might have been wasted because outside of New York, they've fallen one after another. All of California, with the three major ones, all lost, and
Yeah.
pretty resoundingly.
Tough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, hey, I can't. I just couldn't find much good news around the world to buoy anything to make me feel that there's much of a change, right? There just doesn't seem to be. China's got nothing moving in the right direction. The eurozone doesn't have anything moving in the right direction. Japan a little bit, maybe. Is that where we're looking at our sweet spot right now? And then, even Mexico, we're seeing issues in, what will Trump do with NAFTA and all this other stuff? And now the border, that becomes contentious. Does that turn into trade issues?
Well, you've nailed it right there. The world, you're not seeing the economic growth. Now, Mr. Powell may say he's not in a hurry, but he has to be aware that if there is no growth around the world, eventually that will impact US, or at
Right.
least it'll begin to take away some of the US luster of growth. We cannot be the solo engine in this world, the dynamics today. So this is my point. If you have restrictive rates, then at least start bringing rates back to a level that are more reflective or more market oriented. And that's probably in the lower 4% zone. And I think that the ECB is, really creating cracks within the
Yeah.
Eurozone by holding on. So you've got Tuesday harmonized CPI within the Eurozone. Wednesday, you've got UK CPI. Thursday, you've got Canada's industrial production. And then you also have US jobless claims. And then Friday, you have the German GDP expected to be zero point 0.2, which
Wow.
gives them a minus zero point 0.2 on the year. Now, I thought Germany was the engine of
The
growth
leader,
within the.
right?
So, this is a situation that I think if our central bankers do their job and begin to lead rather than waiting for this data dependent rearview mirror, then we should begin to see interest rates moving down and you begin to see a collective, growth beginning to percolate throughout the world. And that's going to be a very positive, outcome, which we may have to wait for the spring of 25 on. How does the dollar
Right.
trade in that interim period? Well, that's why I keep looking for upside targets on the Dixie.
Right. It seems that that's, where the money's running into. Like you said, money moves first, and you can see where the money's moving into here. Not much movement in, anything else. Yeah, the other thing that I've seen, and I'm starting to think about is, when do we start to see the bottom? Like you said, will we see the ECB turn this around? Turn the rates around, lower their rates, get things into a spot where you can start to look at some of these plays because if you think the U.S. is facing inflation coming up, if our rates are too constrictive, and there, you might be looking to some of these other places. How can you get access? There's China funds, there's Asia funds, there's Mexican and Latin American funds that you can use to do that. Are you going to start to look into those, or you think that you got to wait till first quarter of 2025 to sort of start looking at that?
I think, at this particular point in time, I'd be waiting till quarter one of 2025, although China is beginning to show some sort of sign. Let's see what the economic policy of the U.S. becomes. You already saw President Xi in his recent meeting this weekend with President Biden, beginning to say that they're looking to work together, but he did lay out four particular
There
areas
he
he
is.
wants us
Yeah.
to, yeah, stay away from. You know, I'll shift gears quickly here on you though, because we are coming in to the end of the year trading. liquidity becomes a concern. And there was one announcement over the weekend that really rang my bells, and that was the President Biden opening up the ability for the Ukraine to begin to use
Yeah.
American long range missiles to strike deeper in Russia. Now, Putin has already said that this would amount to the West entering the
The
war.
war. Yeah.
Now, he's a lame duck right now. I get a little worried at this particular time of year with liquidity being a major concern that the geopolitic weighting within my trading has just risen rather sharply.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, he seems like he's pissed off at everybody, and he's got no problem burning every bridge there is on the way out the door when it comes to Mr. Biden or President Biden. He deserves that.
Mm-hmm.
But that that definitely that is that could be the black swan event that we've all been sort of talking about. That something's going to hit that's going to cause the next 10-20% pullback. We've seen a pretty good 7% of that already sort of come off the market just as the Trump trade has sort of slowed down here. If I pull up, SPY, let's look at that. I think it capped out at 600, right? Back down to 586 here. I think we could see ourselves fill that gap back down into the zone around 577 with any kind of bad news. So it's the other thing is I've definitely noticed the mean reversion trade is still the trade. You look at some of these ones I was looking at. I don't know if you noticed Kava had really exploded on their earnings last week. A quick service restaurant out of my area in DC. So I was interested there, and they just blasted off here. They've been trading at about a 135 level, jumped up to 171, and they've given it all back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what you see. People are quick to react to news, and what it seems to me that's retail, and then institutional says, guess what? It wasn't that good of a report. They don't deserve that move up, and we're seeing it sort of the other way. Quick decisions to the downside have been bought back in general there too.
Yeah, mean reversion models, and keeping in mind that the majority, and I mean, everything just about is traded electronically today,
Yeah.
even if it's a human entering an order. A mean reversion model is going to say this move hasn't happened to this percent in the last 3 years of data that I have. Therefore, I want to fade it.
Right.
And
I
when
don't.
they enter it, they fade with one. And if the move begins to go in their direction, they enter another one. And if it continues, they enter another and another and another. And so you begin, as your chart right there shows, this cascading mean
Yeah.
reversion move. And each price dictates that it was the right decision, and it adds.
Right, it
And
multiplies, and then another algorithm finds it that didn't have it to start off with, and you end into those spots. Yeah, it was one of those statements. I heard someone was talking about a stock, and it was a big stock, and the comment was, well, hedge funds don't care about technicals, and I was like, I think that you couldn't be further from the truth there, and that most of them are using quant trading of some sort, and by doing that, that is absolutely following, you know, that to a T, right? It is absolutely using VWAP to do things and mean reversion, like you're saying, and like you said, it scales in. Unlike a retail trader who buys in maybe one or two, tranches when they get into something, they're buying 1,000 times to get in or out of positions and doing it at one share a time.
And you need to really understand that hedge funds, yes, portfolio managers may trade on a host of geopolitics, of technicals, of their own ideas. But each hedge fund today in this world has quantitative trading units that trade the markets as well. So there's a mix of those type of tradings. That's what makes the beauty of the way the market is evolving today.
Right, and it gives them their risk management, built-in risk management.
Right. The only thing you need in this quantitative type trading with these type of models is you need data. You need live data, real data that is instantaneous within milliseconds of market trading. And if you can pay and afford that market data, then you can run these type of models trading.
Right, and what you're talking about, of course, is New Jersey, where there are all of the NYSE and Nasdaq data is stored there. I think it's Edison, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. And then right next to it is huge data centers that Citadel and others have there, and then rent out space there to be as close. People don't realize that it really is still that case, even though it's the internet. The closest connection to where that data starts is going to get the information first. If they've got bigger, better computers, then they are making these decisions like you're saying in seconds. And I used to love there's a heat map company called Book Maps that's out there that I loved. I could watch those bubbles all day, and used to use it a lot when trading Bitcoin because it was one of the few things you could actually trust. And it shows you those patterns, and you can see when it's an algo. And it's like you said, it's one, 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 and it goes, and then it just goes, and you see the bubble just start to expand as that algorithm catches on. Because once, like you said, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once it moves in that direction, they
Yep.
continue to add to the position, and once they're adding, you're not going to see the catch up from a retail for sure.
Yep, and a great book for your viewers to read if they want to understand some of this. It's a little bit old, but Flash Boys would give you the concept of how people look to co-locate their data centers. We used to say that Chicago, probably back in the late '90s, early 2000s, with the futures market, the most
Right?
expensive real estate in the city of Chicago was the building next door to the futures exchange,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
which housed all the servers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a Federal Bank of Chicago right there too. It is an expensive block, although it is
Yeah,
deteriorating. When I
yeah,
I went to school at DePaul, and the business school, of course, is about a block and a half away in the loop there from the Board of Trade. And then when I worked for Prosper Trading, that's where the offices for Prosper are in the Chicago Board of
that,
Trade. So yeah, it's a great little building, great little area, a lot of fun over there. And like you said, yeah, I mean and exactly, you just saw these buildings, you don't know what they are. They're data centers. Yeah, exactly. If you
right.
know,
And so for your viewers, when I talk about currencies, I try to give a more a look that isn't going to be in the microseconds, and that's why I would look for levels in the dollar index to look to
yeah,
get long again, provided the situation and nothing changes in the mix that we see today with all these central bankers speaking this week, though, you have to begin to look for the cracks. If they come out with the standard mantra that they're data dependent, then the dollar index is probably a good buy in that 105, 70, 80 level and
right.
targeting substantially higher. But watch for the ECB. There's a number of speakers out, including President Lagarde, but watch for them to begin to start hitting the bell saying, we need to start cutting more aggressively.
That
If
would be
that
nice to
happens,
hear. Yeah,
and in Bank of England as well, Bailey speaks before Parliament. Now he's going to take the same conservative approach, but they're passing a $40 billion tax hike.
right.
So that's going to have a slowdown effect. So Bank of England is going to play cautious for now in front of the politicians, but they're going to have to play catch up. But initially, the ECB is the one to begin to watch here.
Okay. One other question I have for you here in the U.S. with the rates, we know that in general it's thought that Trump likes higher rates because of the banks, his friends, and all that. But if he's actually looking, I mean, again, when I start to use common sense, and I know that doesn't work in our government, but when I look at it and say our biggest payment is on our is paying for our debt, right, through these treasury auctions, wouldn't we want that? Isn't it sort of like a two-way edged sword there? If it gets down to the lower fours, it costs us less to issue our debt, means that he does cut the deficit a little bit in that case. Am I correct there?
You are, and I would perhaps take issue with he doesn't want interest rates lower. Again, we are restrictive. What the government our new government appears to be jockeying for is growth. And in growth, we can see rates lower.
You
Will
have
we
to.
see rates back to zero? No, that's gone.
No.
That's
Yeah.
in the
Oh yeah.
history books. 3 to 4%, possible, depending on the economic situation. More realistically, the high threes, low fours is probably the target zone. And that should stimulate growth and allow us to begin to address the deficit and the debt payments, because that now is, at least I recently read, is larger than your defense budget.
It is. It's the number one cost. That's what I was saying. Is that because that's where I start to wonder how, like I said, that's why I think that Trump isn't going to be higher for longer. Because if Musk is looking at this from the outside as a businessman, and Vivek and these guys, they're going to look at the first thing and say, "What's our biggest bill? How do I cut my biggest bill?" Right? You don't start in the bottom end, because that isn't going to make a difference. So and I don't see Trump cutting defense. Medicare,
Our
Medicaid has become already too decisive, in my opinion. I think that's where the Republicans, where MAGA would get a split, is you'd start to see defections if he starts to play around with Social Security or Medicaid. So what do you do? How do I lower my debt payments? That's what I look at.
I totally agree, and been shaking my head for years over the fact that our Treasury Secretary today, former Fed governor,
Yeah,
moved our debt payments into the short term.
right.
We're coming out of zero. I mean, doesn't the Treasury and the central bank talk? She had both roles.
Yeah, listen, don't get me
Why would
started on having an 80-year-old guy or woman. No, I don't take it because she's a female. It's more just her age. It's why I don't think Gensler was the right guy. Unfortunately for some of these positions, technology has evolved that they don't seem to grasp, and they just live in a world, like you said, that says I'm going to look at the same old data to drive a car forward. Well, why am I only looking behind me? And she's supposed to look ahead. That is part of that role, without a
and
doubt. So we'll see. Hopefully, that's the other part is, to me, is what we're going to start to see more and more of too is these fights over the cabinet positions, and I think that's when things also will start to weigh on the markets. I think the more and more as that battle starts to intensify, that could be what spooks the market also.
um, I I'm going to I'm not entering into politics here at all. Okay, but the politicians running our financial system have made a mess.
Yep.
So I think that I can look at the light at the end of the tunnel, the silver lining, and say we have a group of non politicians now that are going to address just what you said. What is your biggest cost? How
Yep.
do we finance our debt, so that the cost level goes down, just like you'd run a business?
Yeah.
I think from that point of view, I think that there's a lot of positives here. As to his cabinet picks, I think it's going to be a very smooth process. I think you're going to see a very fast movement and I don't think you're going to see a holdup, with the exception maybe one or two or three.
Yeah, I think we all know those. And again, I don't like to talk politics here. I more wanted to
No,
talk about the way it's going to affect the market, because I do think those fights, that's where people start to get spooked. It doesn't matter which side. Again, where the market is agnostic, but what it doesn't like is controversy. I think, you know
and
what I mean? Is while we want balance and we want checks and balances in place, when it's like the kids. The market's like the kids, especially the retail traders. We don't like it when mom and dad fight.
that's right.
And that's what my takeaway is that what's lining up ahead of us. I think again, it's more about, I think that I'm looking at those. What is the kindling that's going to get set off that does push us down that next set that a lot of us feel is coming back below us. And I do think that these are some of those kindling points to look at. I think retail traders, again, I think that once we saw the post election when everybody was just giddy, or a good portion of the country was giddy because of a mandate. When that mandate starts to get fought out between the battles, I think that's where you start to see, like I said, that's where the retail traders get spooked. I've seen it, before too many
Yep.
times. So
And we're
with
all
that,
talking. we're all talking about, the correction, the top. It's like waiting for Godot, and you can
Yep.
be sitting here waiting for this correction and missing. What I would say as a risk manager, this is a very treacherous period of time, end of the year, when books begin to get squared, when very large positions begin to get trimmed. And so for the retail community, you've got to be aware, and you've got to be, trading quick, and keep your risk parameters very tight.
Right. You just said it. You have two sides of it. You have to work. One thing you do have is we were looking a little bit the other day. There are a lot of buybacks that need to be done before the end of the year that haven't been done yet. So you have that getting completed that could, on certain stocks, provide a short term boost. And you might say, why did that boost come? Make sure you're looking to see, was that a buyback that did that? Or was the market reaction causing that move up? And the same way is, don't get nervous, is, you see the commercials. I have to laugh. They're on CNBC all the time. These 17 billionaires have sold some of their Nvidia. Shouldn't you be worried? They sold it because they bought it at $49 and now it's at whatever. You know what I mean? I saw again, same thing on Bitcoin. There was a wallet that came up. You want to talk about a win, Steven? These are the things you and I dreamed. Go to bed dreaming about. At 6 cents in 2010, somebody bought 2,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, good.
6 cents a Bitcoin. They just moved them over to an exchange at $178 million.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, But someone will say, "Oh, I can't believe they're not holding. It could go to what?" That's where I'm that guy that says I don't need more than 178 million. I'll do okay.
Yeah, you are never ever wrong taking a profit. It's no look back.
Hey, we're going to leave on that line right there. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you again on Wednesday. Thank you so much for Quasar Markets Live, Stephen Flanagan and Howard Greenberg, and my man Big B. Thank you so much.